Well, I've got black friends. Don't say that. They're African Americans. Nope. Slavery brought all black people to America. Try again. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Hippie in the City. I'm Elle Army, and this week we're going to be doing a solo episode. With everything going on in the world right now, I just needed to get my thoughts out to you guys and how I can help fix it and how I can be a voice of change and a better person. I might stumble and I might fall in this episode, but I'm aiming to express my feelings, research my own personal relationship to racism in America, and re-educate myself in hopes that it will inspire non-Black people like myself to put the defenses down and be a part of the solution. Beyonce says in her song All Night on Lemonade, "They say true love is the greatest weapon, to win the war caused by pain, but every diamond has imperfections. But my love's too pure to watch it chip away. Oh, nothing real can be threatened. True love breathes salvation back into me. With every tear came redemption, and my torturer became my remedy." Beyonce says, "My torturer became my remedy." Now, I can say that's true in the context of my own addictions and subsequent recovery. I tortured myself long enough with self-hatred, shame, and doubt that I was forced to become my own remedy. Now, if I know that within myself, then I know that outside of myself. So if non-Blacks are the torturer, then we must become the remedy. It's uncomfortable as hell, but on the other side of this discomfort is bliss. On the other side of the discomfort is truth, freedom, beauty, true love. On the other side of that discomfort is healing. I know that from my addictions to my recovery. I know that within myself. So I know that outside of myself. Beyonce says that if we're going to heal, let it be glorious. I admire her strength and her courage to heal the things inside of herself, because then she has the power to heal them outside of herself. I was listening to a podcast the other day. It's called Dissect Podcast. The host is named Cole Kushna. Probably saying that wrong. Cole Kushna. There we go. And he dissects albums from start to finish. Each episode is a new song on the album. Each season is a different album. And he really breaks down everything that you're listening to and that it's not on accident, and the history behind some of the chord progressions or the drum beats or the synth sounds. And this season 6, is Lemonade by Beyonce. Now, we all know that I love Beyonce. She is wonderful to me because she's vulnerable and she's real. She's a Virgo. She's a woman. She really cares about righting the wrongs in her history, in her personal life. And I think that there is nothing more courageous and important. I try to do it in my own life, and I respect that she does it in the public sphere so other people can be inspired. So Cole Kushna says, in his first episode, he says, "We're going to watch Beyonce make lemonade out of the lemons of American history, from the generational curses born out of slavery, racism, injustice, and sexism. Beyonce will come out the other side of Lemonade, reborn, and through the artistic expression of her own redemptive story, she will lead an entire formation of women like her to power and spiritual freedom." Now let's take a minute. That is powerful. Both the Dissect podcast and Beyonce's album have really struck a chord in me that I can't quiet down. So I was wondering, if you're walking outside and you're feeling scared lately because of the coronavirus, or if you're scared to see another person on the street get too close to you, I'm wondering, then can you understand how hard that would be to do every day of your life? I can imagine that fear is deeply rooted in Black pain, and we all have struggles and we all have hardships. But as white people or non-Black people, the color of our skin has not been one of those struggles or hardships. So I'm asking everyone that's listening to dig deep so that we can all be a part of the solution. Okay, so I'm making this podcast on anchor.fm because A, it's free. B, it lets you edit everything in the app on the website. So if I'm on the go, I can literally pull up the app, move around segments, listen to how the order sounds, add music. I can even add different pictures for each episode. And then when I'm done, oh my gosh, it uploads to Spotify, Apple, Google, 5 or 6 others, all for me. So I don't have to do it. It's literally amazing. Download the app or go to anchor.fm to start your podcast now, because we need more podcasts out there. We need more storytellers. Oh, and another cool thing is that you can get paid from sponsorships, and it helps me so that I can be able to go out there and find amazing guests to connect and talk to that you guys can listen to. So download the app or go to anchor.fm right now. In listening to Dissect, they talk about how Beyonce researched her ancestors. What she found was that some of the self-hatred that was born out of the pain of slavery, out of the torture that was slavery, it's carried through generation after generation, and you can inherit a lot of that energy and a lot of that pain. The only way to sift through it and get rid of it is to look it in the face and look it in the eye. So what I did is I actually dug into my own history. I went to ancestry.com, which is a great resource, and I started tracing my lineage back. Now, I knew that my mom's side of the family emigrated from Ireland and that they were mostly very poor. So I was fairly certain I was not going to find any slave owners on that side, just given their economic situation and how recently they came to America. But my dad's side goes back generations in Kentucky. So I figured I might find some dark spots there. And I did. I was able to dig through and found 2 of my ancestors were slave owners. Now, I can't go back and change the past, but I can look it in the eye. I can realize that my ancestors were a part of the problem. And so that means even more so, I need to be a part of the solution. And I'll tell you, it was not easy. It was not easy to find this information. I typed in so many things on Google to try to find this information out, and I was really nervous. So the first family member that I found is my 4th great-grandpa. So it doesn't give any names here, but I wanted to call out the ages and genders of the slaves that my ancestors owned. 28 years old, male, 25-year-old female, a 20-year-old female, a 15-year-old male, a 6-year-old male, a 4-year-old male, a 2-year-old male, a 3-year-old male, a 2-year-old female, and a 1-year-old female. All of those people are younger than me, and that makes me feel responsible to invoke change and to inspire others to see how their ancestors and their lineage has affected what's continuing in America today. Now, my other relative who owned slaves was John McKiernan Monahan. So we share the same last name. That's my maiden name. That is really heavy. I mean, there's some part of me that can look at the other ancestor, and, they just seem too removed. I'm looking at this ledger of slave owners, and there's Monahan, my last name. It's very personal, and it's very sad. I'd like to go and read their ages and genders as well. 15-year-old male, 7-year-old male, 3-year-old male, 10-year-old male. You hope and you pray when you think in the context of your own self and your own ancestors that they were humane, kind. The reality of the situation is there's no way that you'll know. And regardless of the conditions in which you were keeping your slaves, you still were treating humans as less than human. We are all human. We are all flesh and bone and have hearts and minds and feelings that are all justified. And we are all powerful and intelligent and beautiful. I think it's important to look at the way the system was built, how it was built, who it was built by, continue to try to fix it. And if we can look at ourselves, if I know this within myself, within my history and my past, then I can fix it outside of myself. And as a woman, I feel very connected to other women. I can understand emotional depths that come with being second guessed, looked over, put down, over-sexualized and told I wasn't intelligent and all these other things. I have that in my story. All of my sisters who are people of color understand the female struggles just as deeply as I do, but they have something that's one step greater in this fight for equality. So I want to do my part to help anyone that feels pushed aside, underrated, marginalized. It makes me crazy. It just, I'm trying to speak so correct and so eloquent and getting my points across without too much crazy emotion, but it's hard to do. That's why I keep pausing. It's like, it makes me crazy. It makes me angry. I'm just like, how could people not see that other human beings, no matter your socioeconomic status or your intelligence or your age or your skin color or your gender or your sexuality, I'm going out of breath. Like, how can you not see that we're equal? We're all here in this human experience. We're all on this crazy rock flying through space, and we need each other to get through it. It's like, to me, it seems so simple. I have been re-educating myself on Black history. So the Black history we were taught in schools is not always accurate, or it's just a tiny glimpse of the fuller picture. So some of the Black history that I did not know, Black people did not first arrive from slavery. There are accounts as far back as 1519 of Black slaves escaping from Portuguese and Spanish slave ships, winding up in Florida, parts of St. Augustine, Florida, even Virginia and Maryland. So that was something I was shocked to find. Another event that I've recently learned about was called the Tulsa Race Massacre, Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was also known as the Black Wall Street Massacre. In 1921, KKK, the white mob, they ended up going to this Black Wall Street, which was this very affluent neighborhood, and they pretty much burned down the whole area. So it was reported that 36 were dead. That was reported 1921 by the Tulsa Times. But they did a 2001 study, and they found that the newspaper and police reports were removed from that time. And then they found some mass graves. So they've estimated now that the massacre was actually more like 100 to 300 killed. Another piece of Black history you might not know. Rosewood Massacre was 1923. It was a town that had about 200 Black people in it. Yet again, we hear the KKK and the white mob infiltrate Rosewood. They just start looting, burning things down, shooting people. It went on for 2 to 3 days. A lot of people fled the city, but most of them were killed. The entire town was left empty. This stuff is shocking. I mean, it's just shocking. The Florida governor was so appalled at how things were handled down there that he sent a jury to go interview people. Well, what happened was they got testimony, mostly from white folks, and concluded that there was not enough evidence to prosecute. The whole town burned down. There were no more people there. There were dead bodies. Hello? I'm like, some of this, I'm just like, oh my God. It's like so sad. It's so depressing. Now you know about the Tulsa Race Massacre and the Rosewood Massacre because those people deserve to have their history talked about. They deserve justice. Some more Black history that I found was when the 13th Amendment was passed in 1865. So it says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall be duly convicted, shall exist within the United States. So the wording of this is very problematic for me. It's saying it's not acceptable, with the exception that punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, i.e. if you're in jail, which just literally explains to me how we got where we are. Reading that, I was like, oh my God, okay. Yeah, wow. Like, it hasn't changed much. We got to do better, people. I mean, we just have to do better. Let's move on to talking about the Jim Crow laws. We've all heard Jim Crow laws, Jim Crow era. I wanted to educate myself specifically and factually on what that is. I'm going to read this verbatim so I don't mess anything up. Jim Crow laws were a collection of state and local statutes that legalized racial segregation. The laws existed for about 100 years, from the post-Civil War era until 1968. 1968, let me give you a little context. My parents were born in 1964. That is not that long ago. It was meant to marginalize African Americans by denying them the right to vote, hold jobs, get an education, or other opportunities. Those who attempted to defy Jim Crow laws often faced arrest, fines, jail sentences, violence, and death. The roots of Jim Crow laws began as early as 1865, immediately following the ratification of the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery in the United States. Black codes were strict local and state laws that detailed when, where, and how formerly enslaved people could work, and for how much compensation. The codes appeared throughout the South as a legal way to put Black citizens into indentured servitude. So let's think about that for a minute. A legal way to put Black citizens into indentured servitude. And they didn't get abolished until 1968. We are obviously still seeing the effects of this. It was also a legal way to take voting rights away, to control where they lived and how they traveled, and to seize children for labor purposes. Seize children for labor purposes. The legal system was stacked against Black citizens, with former Confederate soldiers working as policemen and judges, making it difficult for African Americans to win court cases and ensuring that they were subject to Black codes. These codes worked in conjunction with labor camps for the incarcerated, where prisoners were treated as enslaved people. Black offenders typically received longer sentences than their white equals, and because of the grueling work, often did not live out their entire sentence. During the Reconstruction era, local governments, as well as the National Democratic Party and President Andrew Johnson, thwarted efforts to help Black Americans move forward. Violence was on the rise, making danger a regular aspect of African American life. Black schools were vandalized and destroyed, and bands of violent white people attacked, tortured, and lynched Black citizens in the night. Families were attacked and forced off their land all across the South. The most ruthless organization of the Jim Crow era, the Ku Klux Klan, was born in 1865 in Pulaski, Tennessee, as a private club for Confederate veterans. The KKK grew into a secret society terrorizing Black communities and seeping through white Southern culture, with members at the highest levels of government and in the lowest echelons of criminal back alleys. At the start of the 1880s, big cities in the South were not wholly beholden to Jim Crow laws yet, and Black Americans found more freedom in them. This led to substantial Black populations moving into the cities. As the decade progressed, white city dwellers demanded more laws to limit opportunities for African Americans. Jim Crow laws soon spread around the country with even more force than previously. Public parks were forbidden for African Americans to enter, and theaters and restaurants were segregated. Segregated waiting rooms in bus and train stations were required, as well as water fountains, restrooms, building entrances, elevators, cemeteries, even amusement park cashier windows. Laws forbade African Americans from living in white neighborhoods. Segregation was enforced for public schools, phone booths, hospitals, asylums, jails, and residential homes for the elderly and handicapped. Some states required separate textbooks for white and black students. New Orleans mandated the segregation of prostitutes according to race. In Atlanta, African Americans in court were given a different Bible from white people to swear on. Marriage and cohabitation between white and black people were strictly forbidden in most southern states. It was not uncommon to see signs posted at town and city limits warning African Americans that they were not welcome there. If slavery wasn't bad enough, we had to go and try to take away their freedom in any way we could think of because our ancestors were scared of change, scared of losing power. I mean, come on, a flame does not lose anything by lighting another candle. Wounds like this take a really long time to heal, and it takes effort on the part of non-Black folks. I'm just trying to be a good beacon for my fellow white people who are maybe feeling scared to look at their own ancestry, to re-educate themselves, to say the wrong thing, to, have those uncomfortable conversations. And I'm just hoping to be a little bit of inspiration for you to do that, even though it feels scary and awkward and I'm sweating. I'm so nervous right now. But I think it's important. I do. I think it's important to get it out there. And to realize that stumble and you fall and you're not perfect. But again, we know how deadly silence is. My heart is in the right place. I know that for sure. I know how deep my love for humanity is and for this earth. I feel a kindred spirit with you as a soul on this earthly plane. I just thought, you know what? If not me, who? If not now, when? I'm really hoping that you've learned some new stuff like I have, that you're inspired by my research into my own ancestry to find the hard truths that my ancestors played a part in slavery in America. So some ways that I want to leave you with that can help facilitate change and help facilitate some of the harder questions. Do more research about your own family history. Go to the U.S. Census for 1850 and 1860 slave schedule. You can type that in on Google, and there you can see if you have any ancestors that were slave owners. Re-educate yourself on the systemic racism that has existed from the birth of this country, and realize that you are indoctrinated on one side or the other. Take back your own autonomous power by doing the research. Only by looking pain in the eye and saying, not me, not today, never again, can we find a solution together on the same side. Of course, it's simple, but it must be said. Be kind to yourself and be kind to one another. I'm going to end here with a poem that I wrote a while back. I am destined to be a great, big, powerful tree, to be magnificent and grow my roots. I have stayed a seedling in my pot, wearing my boots, always running where the wind blew, scared of what I could be. Now I see that I'm all of it too. I need to love the wind in my branches and the soil in my feet, in my shoe. Be the tree to rise and bear fruit. If you love our podcast as much as we love you, please subscribe. Spotify, you can hit the follow button, and on Apple Podcasts, you can click the 3 dots on the right and click subscribe. Because numbers matter, people. We live in the Matrix. Also, if you'd like to support us so we can aim to run ad-free episodes, go to anchor.fm/L-Army/support. That's anchor.fm/ELLE-ARMY/SUPPORT. Peace and love. Some bonus material that I wanted to give you guys. The man that invented the cotton gin, which was a device that removed the seeds from the cotton. So he's from the North, and of course he wanted to make some money on his invention. But he was thinking that it could also help to maybe not end slavery, but to reduce it. He was from the North and he did not believe in slavery. So he created this device, the cotton gin, so that it would take the work off of the Black people from de-seeding the cotton. And unfortunately, it is one of the things that made slavery booming in the South. He really thought that was going to be a good idea, and it really backfired. There were close to 3,800 Black slave owners in the South. I found that really interesting. If you were lucky enough to buy your own freedom and went on to buy their family members and friends, the 1860 census, it says, color in all cases where the person is white, leave the space blank. Where Black, mark B. If mulatto or mixed blood, mark M. If Indian, write IND. It is very desirable to have these directions carefully observed. Absolutely wild. It doesn't make any sense to me. The last bit of bonus material I will leave you with is that in the summer of 1919, there was a thing called the Red Summer. And it is because there were over 25 race riots that occurred throughout the country, mostly in the South. There was looting, rioting, picketing, police brutality. And it occurred right at the heels of the 1919 pandemic of the Spanish flu. I found that extremely fascinating that we are on the heels of the COVID-19 pandemic, and here we are having protests and race riots and looting and destruction and police brutality. This is nothing new, but it's time for it to be over. The world is not going to end, but it's not going to get better unless we take affirmative action and lead with kindness and take care of one another and take care of our planet. So that's what I'm here to do, and I hope you are too.